everyone, welcome back to Maths Hub. In today's video, we will be talking about the differences between the old GMAT exam and the new version called the GMAT Focus Edition. Let's get started. There are mainly four major categories which we can differentiate between the old exam and the new exam. These are the structure of the exam, the syllabus of the exam, the features, and the scoring and the reporting patterns of these exams. Let's dive into each one in detail. First is the structure. The major point that you might want to take away from this difference is that the test time is shorter and there is more time per question. That is great news for all test takers. And this is a recurring theme that you will be observing throughout. Overall, the changes of the GMAT Focus Edition are very positive. The old GMAT exam had four sections. Those were the analytical writing section, where you had to actually write an essay given a topic that will be presented to you for about 30 minutes. And the second was called the integrated reasoning section, which had about 12 questions for about 30 minutes. These had questions like graphs, tables, something called a two-part analysis, and also a multi-part analysis. This still exists in the new exam, but under a different name. And the third was, of course, the verbal reasoning, which had about 36 questions over 65 minutes. And the fourth section, the quantitative reasoning section, had about 31 questions to be answered in 62 minutes, which is exactly 2 minutes per question. And the total time of the exam was just over 3 hours, 187 minutes. That was a long exam. And you had to choose, even though there were four different sections, you could not choose whichever section order that you wanted. You could only choose between a set of 3 different options that they had provided previously. You could not choose, let's say, a permutation of 4 times 3 times 2, which is about 24 different choices. You did not have that choice before. And now let's look at the GMAT Focus Edition. In the new exam, we have only 3 sections, which is great news, first rate news. And these are the 2 similar sections as we had before, which is the quant and the verbal reasoning. But notice that you actually have more time per question here. And the overall exam duration is also shorter, which is amazing, right? And verbal reasoning, you have 23 questions for 45 minutes. Earlier, you had 36 questions for 65 minutes. It's a huge change. And the third section, called the data insight section, is very similar to the old integrated reasoning section. The only difference being that the quant section also had questions called data sufficiency, which are now moved to the data insight section. So overall, it's a much more balanced and much more focused exam, right? So there's a reason why they have named it the GMAT Focus Edition. And the total time is just 135 minutes, 45 minutes for each section. That is amazing. See, that's a massive drop compared to the old entire duration of the exam, right? Great news for all students. And you can choose any order that you want in the new exam. You want to start with quant, you can do that. You want to start with verbal reasoning, you can do that. Choose any order you like in any order you want. And next comes the syllabus. So the GMAT exam had pretty much the high school math syllabus. You had your statistics, you had your arithmetic, you had your probability questions, you had your a little bit of geometry questions, and almost all of high school maths pretty much covered. And you had data interpretation, graphs, tables. You need to be really good at reading comprehension, at critical reasoning and verbal reasoning, understanding the nuances and the logic behind the sentences, being really good at grammar for sentence correction questions, and also being really good at writing an essay depending on a prompt that is being given to you, called analytical writing. Now let's look at what the Focus Edition has for us. It's almost the same, except there is no geometry. This is my favorite change in the entire exam, because why would an MBA business student or even an entrepreneur or a person who's running a business ever need to know geometry, right? It makes no sense, and that's why we are focusing better on the actual business education. And no sentence correction. Thanks to ChatGPT and AI, we no longer need to be adept about the dots and the dashes. We can focus on the actual meaning behind the words and not the nitty-gritties. No analytical writing section, so you don't need to write your huge essays anymore. Great, now let's get to the features. In the old GMAT exam, you could not skip any questions. You had to answer a question and only then you could move forward. You cannot go back to a question and change your answer. You did not have that option. And you had to choose your universities to send your scores to before you take the exam. That's strange, right? Why would I send a score to university before I know how I even performed? That doesn't make much sense, right? Why would I send a score to a university I want to apply to before I even know how I performed? That's been changed. And there was adaptive questioning, which means the GMAT exam is a test which varies its difficulty of the questions depending on what you got right and what you got wrong. It always starts with a reasonably medium range question, and if you keep getting your answers right, it keeps getting harder and harder. And if you get your answers wrong, it keeps getting more and more easy. And that's how it's adapting to your specific skill and your specific speed also. And let's now come to and see what the GMAT Focus Edition has for us. You can now bookmark questions to review later. You still have to answer the question, but you can bookmark it and come back to it later when you have more time for it. You can change up to 3 answers per section. So you can come back to your bookmark questions, and up to 3 questions you can change your answers to. That's a beautiful change. And now you can send your scores after you've seen your performance, not before. Makes a lot of sense. And it's still adaptive though. You still will be getting tougher questions if you get more right, and easier ones if you get more wrong. But yeah, that's a very important feature of the GMAT exam. So it's great that they still have that. The only negative change I would say for the entire GMAT Focus Edition is that you will now be penalized for unanswered questions. So they have determined a set number of questions for each candidate, and you will have to answer every question, or else you will be penalized for the unanswered questions. So do keep that in mind. And lastly, coming to the scoring and the reporting changes. So the old GMAT exam, the scores used to range from about 200 to 800 in about 10-point increments. So all the way from 210 to 20, all the way up to 790 to 800 is what the scores range were. And there was no detailed report sent to you after you finished the exam about how you performed and what was your weakness and what was your strength. You could not really ascertain much. But now that's been fixed, and a huge improvement here. So in the new GMAT exam, I'm not sure why they made this change. It's like get something new, just add a new flavor to it. And they just said now all the scores will only be ending with a 5. No, you cannot get a 790 anymore. You only have to get a 795 or a 785. So it now varies from 205 to 805 in 10-point increments. Very similar to before, but just a quirky change. And I have very, very detailed performance reports. In fact, I was mind blown when I saw the level of detail they're going to. You will get a performance report by your section telling you how you performed in the QA versus the verbal reasoning versus the data insights compared to an average. Like they'll give you a median score and show you how your performance was by section. And also by your program and school. If you've chosen a particular program, let's say you've chosen the Chicago Booth School of Business MBA, you will be shown what is your score compared to what is the mean score for that particular school and their program. You'll also be shown a scoring report versus the content domain and skill. For example, the content domain they mean by things like reading comprehension or arithmetic. So you will be shown for arithmetic what's the mean score and what is your score. That's great, right? And even by skill, in fact, they will also give you a report of how you performed on average depending on if the question is a real life question, like if Ram went to forest and got 5 apples and somebody else got 4 apples, what's that addition, versus a theoretical question like what is 4 plus 5. Right? They'll also show you your performance in a theoretical question versus a real life question. And also by time management, right? Every single question, how long you took to answer it, and did you answer it right, did you answer it wrong, every single detail is provided. I don't even know if so much detail is required and necessary, but yeah, I think it provides a solid understanding of every student's performance for them to be able to do better in the next exam. I think the underlying reason here is to incentivize you to do better and pay for the fee again. But yeah, I guess it's still a good thing if you're going to get a better score, right? Yes, so that was the video, guys. So if you liked the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. To share the video to your friends who might also want to be taking the GMAT Focus Edition. And we will be covering everything you need to know about the GMAT Focus Edition in the upcoming videos, as well as with mock tests and step-by-step solutions. So see you again.